Hello everyone and welcome back to my random cryptids thing, which is an A to Z. And really, I try and choose the most random cryptids that I wanted to talk about. And so there's no real format to this. I just discuss what I have and talk to you about that. And today we're talking about the Gazeka. So upon the trek through the mountains of British New Guinea, where the rainforest shifted to more fern-like growths as the altitude climbed and the mist rose upwards, the expedition continued to move north carefully. Traipsing up Mount Albert Edward, the expedition paused as it came across something unusual. Seeing signs that a large creature had passed through the ferns recently, curious marks were found upon the ground. At this high altitude, around 3,800 metres, the locals spoke of a grassy plain where this creature lived. But the curious thing about the tracks, they belonged to a hooved animal. The Gazeka, sometimes called the devil pig, is a cryptid from the mysterious regions of Papua New Guinea, and descriptions upon the creatures vary but tend to come to one consensus: a long proboscis, hooves, and a body about the size of a large animal like a tapir or giant sloth. A lot of the drawings out there tend to be of a tapir-like animal, and there are lots of theories as to what it could be. Some ancient kind of tapir, or one of the long-past members of the taxodon, or the calicophyrs, have been posited as a possibility. Considering Australia was once connected to South America and both share marsupials, not to mention the fact tapir exist in South America and Malaysia, there's that whole question about if it could be related, or if the calicophyrs evolved in South America, could they also be in Australia? But this isn't Australia. This is Papua New Guinea. Now, Papua New Guinea is the northern extension of the same tectonic plate as Australia, and there was a land bridge at some point in history, and this is where certain marsupials like the tree kangaroo crossed over. Along with this, the fossil records indicate a giant kangaroo species also moved over there, but there are far more interesting kinds of megafauna that could be more indicative of the creature than tapir. In fact, it's confirmed that neither tapir nor rhinoceros-like species existed on Papua New Guinea. The opening paragraph refers to the KAW Moncton expedition, presumably around the 1900s. Then there was the tragic. After which there was the tragic expedition of a Dr. Lorenz, stating that they viewed a similar animal just as large and described very similarly. More specifically, reports later suggested it was found around the Wharton Range and Owen Stanley Range and Irian Jaya, all of them describing something pig-like or tapir-like. The name Gazeka doesn't come from the locals or from Moncton, but thanks to a comic referring to it as such, and this has become the popular name of the creature. Rumours existed about this animal for quite a while, with dung heaps too big for a pig or cassowary being pointed out. However, the most earliest account of the description comes from Adolf Bernhard Meyer in 1875, reading as a very large pig, as they called it, fixing its height on the stem of a tree at more than 6 feet. I could not get any other information from them, except that the beast was very rare, but they were quite precise in their assertion. I promised heaps of glass pearls and knives to him who would bring me something of the large animal, but none did. Stories of it attacking. Sorry, I'm using a term here that's not necessarily correct. Attacking a pygmy village, reportedly made by Moncton, made the rounds, and various other authorities described a creature similar to a tapir too. Some even considered it as possibly a species from a prehistoric lineage as well, and there is the possibility. Marsupials have been known to produce hoofed figures, including the carapace grouping, also known as the pig-footed bandicoot, for example, but certainly a thought of Huliferium, an extinct giant wombat-like marsupial found on the island, is a potential type. Artists' depictions of this creature seem quite possible too, with its size being large and its long muzzle that could potentially have been proboscis-like. Certainly, there's a lot of discussion about this creature, and well, the majority of art regarding it is tapir-like, and using the image of a tapir-like animal with the colours of a tree kangaroo. However, that's what's tickled me in particular, as well as the potential of a being like Huliferium. For a point, Papua New Guinea still has areas that haven't been fully viewed over by scientists, and in a recent High Valley, a very rare species of tree kangaroo was seen for the second time ever. I recall too a wildlife program that spent ages waiting for a chance to find a rare tree kangaroo in Papua New Guinea as well. Storm, do you have to stand on everything? Like, you've dropped your toys on me and now you're stomping around the place. Go on. Are you gonna go? Sorry, kitten. Now, tree kangaroos can appear or be described as similar to animals like red or giant panda, and certainly, though thought of the thought of a very large tree kangaroo that would fit a giant sloth if it sat back on its hind feet could be interesting. Certainly, the muzzle of a tree kangaroo looks like it could be something. It becomes something like a proboscis if it swells out, maybe gets larger to draw in air at higher altitudes. Regarding this species, there's no question it might be stories based on something that could have existed, but whether what was documented could have been something that's alive out there too, it could be. With tree kangaroos being difficult to see and find, with people still suddenly seeing rare animals once every decade or longer with this region, is there a chance there could be a kind of tree kangaroo that's so big it sticks to the ground and is more like a wombat or looks like a tapir? I know we have a thing about how there is not likely to be any more large species being identified, but there is always a possibility. I also think very much this creature is some kind of tree kangaroo. Whether it's a racial memory of hunting the being like this that died out fairly recently, as there could also be with the possibility of a phylus seen like animal in the same area. It is possible. I'm probably not sounding very intelligible or in depth with this, but it was one of those thoughtful sort of situations where the region we know has produced some surprising things. And certainly when it comes to this region, I mean, there are so many things that we've heard of but haven't seen. Like the New Guinea singing dog was still quite a mystery for a very long time. And when we've looked into that genetically, it's even more unusual to what we initially suspected. So there is always the possibility that there could be something to this. It might be something that is extinct, but it's still very fascinating. And I hope you found that interesting. And thank you for listening.